Hello everyone, welcome back and Happy New Year. I know I'm very late to the party on that one. Unfortunately, Storm Goretti hit the UK recently and it has resulted in my usual studio space needing a few repairs. So for the foreseeable future, we're going to be filming some videos in my bedroom windowsill, which is where I did my Christmas video, incidentally. So I'm sorry if the lighting isn't ideal, and also if you hear any background noise. I have pets and family, and yeah. For today's video, I think that the best idea is a doll repaint, since I don't need quite as many supplies. And one that I've been planning for quite some time is like a mini-me of myself, obviously, and maybe I can use it as an opportunity to introduce myself a little bit more to some of you. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into which dolls I've chosen. So I am about 5'2" and very pale, so I've chosen this petite Barbie Lux doll as the body kind of base for my mini-me. I've had this for quite a while and have been waiting for this video to open it, so let's go ahead and do that. I'm already making a mess of it. Okay, she has finally been fully released and I've put her on her doll stand. I don't have many doll stands because most of my dolls are secondhand, so this is going to be extremely useful. And the other obviously big benefit of having a brand new doll for once is that her joints are still really tight and good. I don't know how else to describe them, but yeah, that's very novel to me. I'm not quite sure how her face ended up with all these little marks on it. You know what? It might be fallout from this little flocked part of her hair. She's also slightly sticky, which is strange. However, none of that actually really matters because I am not super confident on repainting Barbie heads just because they are so tiny. So I have a donor head from a different doll that I'm actually going to use for this project. I have this Disney Descendants doll. I believe her name was Jane. And as you can probably tell from the bobblehead situation and the terrible state of her hair, I did get her secondhand on Vinted. I think she was £1.50. And I kind of went with her because she's, again, not a bad colour match. She's a very pale doll and I am a very pale-skinned human, so I thought it kind of fit. And yeah, I'm a lot more comfortable working on this size doll head. It's a bit closer to the Monster High kind of scale. Also, my family told me that her face sculpt kind of resembles me, so yeah, we're gonna go with that. First things first, I need to heat both of their heads up so that I can remove them. For this, I have some boiling water in this comically large mug, and also a Ziploc bag since I don't want to get them completely soaking wet. Fingers crossed they will both fit in there. Maybe I'll do one at a time. Once she's been in there a few minutes, I will switch her out for the other doll. And then hopefully her head will be squishy enough to remove. Wow. They have some heavy-duty neck pegs on these Descendants dolls. There we go. While we wait for the other doll's head to soften, I'm going to go ahead and start chopping off Jane's hair here. It is probably rescuable with some effort. However, I have a short auburn pixie cut, so yeah, not pink and brown highlights. I'm going to tie it up beforehand so that I don't have loads of stray hair going all over the place. And then just try to cut as close to the root as possible. Once that's done, hopefully the other doll is soft enough to have her head removed, as disturbing as that sounds. And then I'm going to put just Jane's mostly hairless head back into the water. And hopefully that should soften up any glue inside the head enough that I can go in with some tweezers and start pulling / scraping out some of the hair plugs. Dunk her back in the hot water one last time. Pop her head onto the made to move body. And yeah, now we have successfully hybridized our two dolls. The next thing I'm going to do is use some acetone nail polish remover to remove her face screening. So now we have a completely clean slate to work on, and I think the first thing I'm going to do is reroute her. For this, I'm going to turn this acrylic yarn I found, which is a similar colour to my actual hair, into doll hair. I'm going to wrap my yarn around this little book so that all the pieces will be a similar kind of length. And then once I have a good wad of it on there, I'm going to trim all the bottom ends. So now we have lots of yarn strands of the same length. Then I have this wire coat hanger, and I'm going to take a few of my strands at a time and drape them over the bottom of the coat hanger and tie them in the center. So we've got equal amounts each side of the knot. Rinse and repeat for all the other strands, and then we're going to go in and basically unravel each strand of yarn, which is usually made up of 3 thinner strands. There we go. And since this is going to take quite some time, I thought maybe it would be a good opportunity to tell you a few little things about myself, since this is going to be a mini-me doll. First things first, I guess, I go by Newt on the internet, although that's not my real name. I don't know if that was obvious or not. And I just picked it because I really like newts. I like lizards and amphibians, and in fact I like basically every animal. I'm a little bit phobic of spiders, but, you know, I don't wish them any ill will. I just prefer that they weren't in my immediate vicinity. Other than that, I am 25. I just had a birthday quite recently. I'm from Cornwall, which is one of the Celtic, I'd like to say countries, but we're technically not a country because we are still owned by the King of England, you know. We are technically a duchy of England. We have our own language and our own flag. We are genetically apparently closer to people from Brittany in France than we are to English people, which is pretty interesting. I don't quite know how that happened. In fact, we have recently been awarded minority status, I believe, as long as you have 2 Cornish grandparents, I think is the criteria. Pretty cool little fun fact, I guess. I'm not entirely Cornish though, I do have to admit. However, all the rest of my genetics are pretty much Celtic as well. I seem to be collecting them like Pokemon cards. I definitely know we've got a decent amount of Irish and Welsh though. Okay, once they are all unraveled, I'm going to go in and brush them out. I think the optimal tool for this is like a pet brush. However, I usually just end up using my regular hairbrush and it seems to work okay. Always make sure to keep any of the leftover fluff because it can be used for like stuffing or needle felting, that kind of thing. And then, since this part takes quite a while, I'm going to try and do most of it off camera. So I'm just going to do this first little weft here and show you the next step. Usually I just use a regular straightener for this, a hair straightener. However, mine is in the studio. So I'm going to use this waving tool, which should give much the same effect. And as you can see, now it's like quite soft and silky and it has a nice shine to it. I don't need it to be like perfectly pinned straight because my hair isn't. So yeah, then I'm just going to repeat for the rest of these little wefts here and I'll be back when they're all done. Okay, all of the wefts are straightened and ready to go now. However, before I can apply them to the doll, I need to paint her head in a layer of a similar colour, just so that any gaps won't be super visible. I'm also using the paint to kind of roughly map out a bit more of an appropriate hairline for a shorter haircut. Okay, the paint has dried now, and I realised that she is actually not a good candidate for rerooting because I completely forgot that I was doing a short hairstyle on her, and for short hairstyles I usually glue the hair on, so that's what we're going to be doing today. I guess since this is quite a lengthy process, it might be a good time to tell you a little bit more about myself. I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. It basically means that the genes that make up your collagen are faulty, and the result is that I am flexible to the point where it's like bad. I'm just too bendy for my own good, essentially, which makes me very prone to like joint dislocations and causes a lot of generalized joint pain. It also causes like fatigue as well as making my skin very like thin and fragile, as well as very soft like a mole person. I also have a condition called POTS. POTS stands for Postural Orthostatic Tachycardia Syndrome. Bit of a mouthful, hence the acronym. That is linked to Ehlers-Danlos because my skin being overly stretchy and stuff also extends inside my body. My veins and arteries and stuff can't keep blood where it's supposed to be, so my blood pressure is all over the place and my heart sometimes beats really, really, really fast to make up for it, and the result is that I faint all the time. POTS also comes along with yet more chronic fatigue, as well as another condition which I also have, which is called MCAS, which stands for mast cell activation syndrome. They all kind of go together as like a trifecta. It's very, very common if you have one that you'll also have at least one or all of the others. Another thing that commonly goes with Ehlers-Danlos is neurodivergence in some way. I am diagnosed with autism. I was diagnosed quite late, which was when I was basically meant to be going on to university. I got accepted to a few places, but my mental health at the time was just in such a problematic state that I didn't end up taking up any of those offers. And in a weird way, that kind of actually is what led me to getting into the doll hobby, because I was kind of stuck at home all the time, and in searching for a way to distract myself, I fell down a rabbit hole of Dollightful's videos. I had never really been into dolls before. I never really had any fashion dolls as a kid. I did have a 1/12 scale doll's house, so I've always been into miniatures, but it wasn't until watching Dollightful that I kind of realized the potential for like character creation, and her video about how to start making dolls even when you're on like a really limited or no budget really inspired me, and that is when I started making custom dolls. I did try to sell them at one point on Etsy. I had a little shop called Squeak Boutique, but for some reason Etsy just always took down my listings and said that I was like infringing copyright, and I was pretty disheartened by that for a while. But then I just focused on making dolls for me and for my friends who requested them directly from me, and that in turn led me to wanting to create some sets to take better doll photos in. And then it was a friend who suggested to me that I should start documenting the process of making some of these things, and that maybe people on YouTube might be interested. And that is what led me to make the channel. Okay, I think that's probably enough of me yapping for now, so I'm going to go ahead and try and get this all finished off camera, and then I shall be back when her whole head is covered in hair. Okay, all of her hair is glued on now, and we have to go ahead and cut most of it off, which does feel like kind of a shame since we've just spent so much time gluing it all on. However, it is the best way I could think of to do the pixie cut that I have. I've done a few boy dolls in the past where I've had to cut their hair short, so I'm hoping this will go okay. I do kind of wish I had like some cuticle scissors or something, but I do have a slightly smaller pair that I can use, so we're just going to try our best. Okay, I had to do the last little bit off camera so I could get into all the little awkward spaces a bit more easily. But now we have what I think is a pretty decent approximation of my haircut. So the next thing I need to do is her face up, and to be honest, this is a bit of a personal challenge for me because I struggle really badly with like body dysmorphia and stuff like that, and that kind of like negative voice in my head is being very disparaging about this whole project. So I'm just going to try my best and consult my family and whatnot, and hopefully that will kind of help me stick it to the dysmorphic voice in my head. So, without further ado, let's get on to that. I have already sprayed her face with a layer of Mr. Super Clear, which is like a sealant that makes it easier to draw on the plastic. That means I can go in with my watercolour pencils and try to sketch out some semblance of a face. Okay, I did end up doing some of that off camera just because I had to go and consult family and stuff to make sure I was getting the likeness okay, and apparently it's going pretty well. I do think we have a little bit of eye wonk, and also my eyes are nowhere near this absurdly bright shade of blue. However, I'm just gonna go in with paint next. Mainly because I can't rely on the weather to be able to spray multiple layers of Mr. Super Clear. And also just because I find I can usually get some crisper lines and stuff with paint than I can with pencils. And I can mix up a more accurate eye colour that way as well. Although I am just quickly going to add a little bit of blush with soft pastels, and then I'll go in with just some regular acrylic paint and a really tiny detail brush, and I usually try to go in with the lightest colour first and the darkest last. Okay, so I think I'm going to go ahead and call the face up done now. I'm not personally entirely convinced of the accuracy, but my mum says it looks just like me, so I think I'm just gonna have to go ahead and trust her on that. One major thing that is still missing, however, is the glasses. These are just made from some decently strong but quite thin wire that I wrapped around the plastic tube that some sewing thread came on to get the circular shape parts anyway. And I may redo these at a later date. I'm not sure if they're entirely the right size, but I think they will do for the moment. The final thing I need to do is change up this outfit, because I usually dress like someone enchanted a tree to come to life. Also sometimes like the witch that enchanted the tree. But I decided for the default outfit I would just keep it pretty simple. So I quickly made these flared kind of green leggings off camera, since my pair of these are definitely a wardrobe staple. And then I went ahead and customized an, I think, Illy Forever doll top, which kind of reminded me of this black tank top that I bleach dyed a little while ago. It was made for a boy doll originally, so I just went ahead and took in the side seams and adjusted the neckline. I also wanted to crochet this long witchy cardigan thing that I wear a lot. However, I've been really hyperfixated on amigurumi lately, so I didn't think another in-depth crochet project was really in the cards this week. So instead I just sewed up a quick basic little grey cardigan. Actually, I think this colour is more of a muted purple than grey. Then for shoes, I'm a very big fan of a chunky shoe, so I found these Mycene, Mary Janes. I'm a little bit obsessed with them, to be honest. I want these in human size. Plus, those will make it a lot easier for her to stand. The only real issue with them is that this sock part up here is painted in kind of a skin tone, which is a little weird. Plus I have this OCD thing where I can only ever wear odd socks. So I'll probably repaint those at some point in the future, but for now the trouser kind of covers it decently well, so I don't really mind. As a last little final touch, I have this Bratz messenger bag satchel thing that I've had for a while. Imagine it filled with plushies and craft supplies. And with that, my little mini-me is all finished. I think all she's missing now are some miniature versions of all my pets. However, that would probably take a whole nother video, so let me know if you'd like to see that. Thank you very much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, I would very much appreciate a like, and maybe even a subscribe if you'd like to see more. And I will see you next time. Bye!